Well, that's the way I remember the beginning of the war, is because the adults were all upset, looking out the window and crying. I was short, so I couldn't see it, but they were crying because we were right across the street from the synagogue. The Germans proceeded to take everything out of the synagogue, like prayer shawls, prayer books, everything, the Torah, everything that was meaningful to our religion, and proceeded to make a bonfire out of it. All the adults could do is look out the window and watch and be shocked of what they were seeing. People were gathering around where the fire was, and it was like a happy occasion to the populace that was around it. And this is what, there were candies and cookies to celebrate the occasion. It was a beautiful building, both inside and out. The synagogue began to fall down majestically from the steeple. The Germans were so happy they started giving the Polish kids candy and cookies to celebrate the occasion. Pretty sad statement, isn't it? To give them prizes, cookies and candies for seeing things being destroyed. How sick is that? Children shouldn't be seeing those things. Children shouldn't be learning about such hatred. But it started right from the beginning, September 1st, 1939. It just got worse. It just got worse.
It made a lot of people that survived the war very angry because everything they have lost. Most of the people that were in concentration camps lost their whole family, everybody. That's why we feel very fortunate that we survived the war as young as we were. And of course, again, it's because of our parents. I guess I must have been about 5, 6 years old at the time. I did not know he's my father. I wouldn't accept him as being my father because I didn't remember him. My mother told me, this is your father, but I did not accept him. I didn't believe her because I don't remember seeing him. I was too young to remember. So it was harder for me to accept him coming back, even though what he brought us was such wonderful surprises, the candy, the bread, the jelly that he had hidden all over in his clothes and pockets. But it took me a long time to accept him as being my father. I kept saying, I don't remember him, I didn't know him.
When my father came back, he actually, by coming back, saved our lives. We were already starving, we were already not being able to function. But the thing that I always remember is him coming back with bread and butter in his knapsack. And when he saw the condition that Lila and I were in, he He knew he had to do something. So, and he was wise enough to know that he couldn't give us a whole slice of bread because our stomachs were no longer used to eating a lot. So he cut up the bread and bought it in little cubes and proceeded to feed us. And I always compare it like feeding a bird. You know, the thing was that no sane man would walk into the Warsaw Ghetto, and he did. And it's the miracle of our survival. It really, truly is. Because we wouldn't have survived like all the other 1.5 million children if he hadn't come back. He was very, very smart. He built a hiding place for us under the floor. We would come out like when he got finished working, he would take us out. We didn't have too much to eat or drink. No food, no toys, no books, nothing. We just sat there until he said, you know, took us out. Being older, as old as I am today, and when you think back, I can't imagine their feelings when they went to work, because they didn't know if they would come back and find us, because the Germans would come through the buildings to check and see if there were any children left, any elderly, anybody that was sick, and they would be taken away. You had to be very fast thinking in a matter of no time. You could be taken out if they find out that, especially children. But he was so instrumental in hiding us in furniture, in attics, in cellars, in closets. It was amazing. What he did was he made a false bottom. At the top, you could lift the top, and he put old rags and old newspapers on top. So when you lifted the top of this potato bin, that's all you saw. But underneath is where we were hidden. So every morning before they went to work, because both my mother and father had to work, they would move that piece of furniture, and Lila and I would crawl in there. They left some water, whatever bread they had, and put the piece of furniture against the wall, and off they went to work. They came into this room, and we could hear them. We could hear them coming up the steps. We could hear them talking. And then they left. The miracle was that they didn't bring any German shepherds with them, because had they brought the dogs with them, they would have sniffed us out. Had they moved that piece of furniture away from the wall, my parents wouldn't have found us in this room. Because of his intuitions and his quick thinking, we are here today, that we can talk about our experiences and not being afraid to say they were Jewish, and be able to pray in your religion is such a wonderful feeling. But that's because they were one step before of the Germans. Their whole life was, how do we save Lila and me? The strain that they went through during those years, I don't know that we could handle it today, because there was no relief. The next day they had to go back to work. And so his golden hands is what saved us. He could adopt. He could fix furniture. He could fix a machine. He could cut wood. His knowledge is what saved us.
I was very young, 4 or 5, when we left the ghetto, went to the Aryan side. My father smuggled us out in a garbage truck, went to this Gentile woman and her daughter that somebody arranged for us to go to hide. At that time, I did not know I was Jewish, and being so young, I followed their religion. I went to church, I had a rosary, I had a prayer book, I had everything that a Catholic girl should have, because I went with them. I didn't look Jewish as much as Ann did because I was very fair.
I'm a little bit different. I knew I was Jewish, but I also knew I couldn't say it. But I also looked different. Olive complexion, I had dark curly hair. And since Hitler decided that all Jews had dark hair and curly hair, and that meant that you were Jewish, it made me different. And even when we were finally out of the ghetto, living with the Polish family, I was the outcast because of my looks. Lila could go to church and go to shopping with the women. On the other hand, I had to stay inside the house all the time. I couldn't be seen. So if there was a knock on the door, I had to hide, crawl into an armoire, a closet, and stay there until company left, because they were afraid that I would give everybody away. And as I like to teach youngsters, you know, it didn't matter what, it's the way you are born. You're not going to change your skin, color of your skin. You're not going to change the texture of your hair, not in those days. You are who you are. And so that kept me inside and actually came close to giving the family away, because my mother felt sorry for me. She thought I needed some fresh air, and there was a small balcony. So at night she would put a kerchief on my head and cover most of my face, and I would sit in it at night to get some fresh air. And evidently the neighbor across the street noticed me, and she went to the woman that was actually hiding us, and she warned her that unless she reported us to the German, because she knew that she was hiding Jews, that if she didn't report it, then the neighbor would report it. And so this is as close as we came to endangering the rest of the family because of my looks. So I always felt different. So I saw firsthand in 1945, when the Jews were finally able to pray together, but they were free to pray because the Americans were there. They were in charge. So the freedom started in 1945 when I saw them praying and building this small chapel. And that's how I remembered the religion since 1945. Once we came here, the Jewish community embraced us. And this place where we're sitting today, the Jewish JCC, was the first one to really welcome us to New Orleans, welcome us to America. This was all new, but it was fantastic because we were no longer different. They accepted us. I spoke with an accent. They knew I wasn't from here, but I never felt different as I felt the way I felt in Poland. The people were great and welcoming, and I was fortunate. We never suffered here from that, from the anti-Semitism that I know today and what I see today. It's no, that was what was wonderful about being in America. I've seen it coming back and affecting us. It affected us when David Duke was running for office for the first time, that I really felt some anti-Semitism here. Got involved in fighting that ex-Nazi and Klansman and everything that he stands for. But I'm so upset today, especially today, when I watch the news and watch what's happening right now in the United States, in California, in all different places, of the repeated anti-Semitism, but a violent Semitism that I'm seeing for the first time. Violent Semitism, like in California. People eating dinner and being accosted because they're Jews, and the people that are accosting them are the people that are for Hamas and all the other people that hate Jews. So here we are. How many years later? It's the most upsetting thing that has happened to me in a long time. We've been through a lot, seen a lot, seen how people can be mean and spiteful. And it worries me. When you're talking about grandchildren, today I am worried about my grandchildren because I don't want them to feel the hatred and the name calling. I can't believe I'm saying this here and now, that they should be exposed to this anti-Semitism now it was 2021. We've gone back, we're not going forward, we're going back. You know, I'm not that wise, but it's worries like that I would like to spare my children and grandchildren, because yes, a Holocaust can happen again. We've seen other people suffering and being accosted and not given their rights. But if we don't watch who we elect, who we talk to, how we express ourselves, the hatred and the consequences are here. which all we have to do is turn on the TV and we see it daily. I don't see the peace that I felt when I first came here. From my experience being different because I was Jewish, I remember standing in that square and, you know, it was emotional and people were crying and singing because you can picture all these survivors listening to the announcement by the UN that the Israel was established, that the Jewish state was being established. And I was so excited, Peter. I thought, oh my, if I could just go to Israel, then I won't be different. And, you know, I'll be like everybody else. But that was a 12-year-old mentality thinking. But I'm so happy that we came to the United States, that my children and grandchildren are Americans. And when I watch what Israel has to go through right now, today, I'm grateful that my kids and grandkids are here. I'm so grateful.
Ann has always been my best friend, and we've always been very close because of everything we went through together. I don't think either one of us could have gone through what we did if we didn't have each other. We were always very close. And to this day, I treasure having her as my sister. And I will always, always be grateful for my children.
You know, this is the legacy that we leave behind. It's these grandchildren that also intellectually they understand the world, but and hoping that they can handle hard times. I'm grateful for having them, and hope that I send them the right messages. You know, sometimes you feel guilty being a survivor. You have a different way of looking at life sometimes. Hoping that your children and grandchildren will never know the hardships. But life is never smooth for anyone all the time. And I hope they learned that you have to have the strength to do and deal with whatever comes your way.